Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news arrived quietly, as many literary losses do. In the early hours of February 3, 2026, it was confirmed that Allan Massie had passed away at the age of 87. There were no flashing lights. No public spectacle. Just the steady recognition that a thoughtful voice, long familiar to readers, had finally fallen silent. For decades, Allan Massie occupied a rare space in public life. He was a journalist, a novelist, and a cultural observer who wrote with calm authority. His words did not shout. They questioned. They reflected. And they stayed with those who read them. Born in Scotland in 1938, Massie grew up surrounded by history. That sense of the past never left him. It shaped how he saw politics, identity, and power. Whether writing fiction or commentary, he treated history not as distant memory, but as something still breathing in the present. He became widely known through his columns and essays, where he explored public life with measured honesty. He was never interested in easy answers. Instead, he asked readers to sit with complexity, to accept contradiction, to think before judging. Alongside journalism, Massie built a respected career as a novelist. His historical novels, often set in ancient worlds, were less about battles and empires, and more about human nature. Ambition, loyalty, fear, doubt. He believed that the past revealed truths about the present, if one was willing to look closely. Those who worked with him often described his discipline. He wrote every day. He read deeply. And he cared about language. A former editor once said, "Allan never wasted words. Every sentence had weight, even when it sounded simple." Despite his intellectual reputation, Massie remained accessible. His writing spoke to general readers, not just scholars. He avoided academic distance. Instead, he used clear language, trusting readers to follow difficult ideas when they were presented with care. In later years, his columns reflected a growing sense of concern. He wrote about cultural change, political division, and a loss of shared understanding. Yet even in disagreement, his tone remained civil. He believed conversation mattered. That listening was a public duty. News of his passing prompted quiet tributes across literary circles. Fellow writers, journalists, and readers shared memories of discovering his work. One reader wrote online, "Allan Massie taught me that thinking deeply did not mean writing coldly. He made reflection feel human." Another tribute came from a fellow columnist, who said, "He belonged to a generation that believed words could still guide public life." And he never stopped believing that. Massie was honored throughout his career, becoming a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. Yet recognition never seemed to change him. He remained cautious of praise. Focused on the work itself. Focused on clarity. Those close to him spoke of his private kindness. Of long conversations. Of a man who listened carefully before responding. A family member shared in a brief statement, he believed writing was a form of responsibility. To truth. To memory. To readers. As news spread, there was a shared feeling of an era closing. Massie represented a time when public debate moved more slowly. When arguments were built carefully. When disagreement did not require anger. His death does not leave an empty stage. His books remain. His essays still speak. His questions still wait for answers. New readers will continue to find him, years from now, turning pages and pausing in thought. Allan Massie wrote between history and identity, never choosing one over the other. He understood that the self is shaped by the past, and that understanding the past requires honesty about the self. As readers reflect on his life, they do so not with noise, but with gratitude. Gratitude for clarity. For restraint. For a voice that trusted intelligence and respected silence. In the end, Allan Massie will be remembered not for spectacle, but for steadiness. For writing that endured because it was careful, thoughtful, and true. And in the quiet space he leaves behind, his words continue to speak. The news was confirmed quietly, as theaters across New York prepared for another evening of rehearsal. Woodie King Jr. had passed away. He was 93 years old. For many, the announcement felt like the closing of a curtain that had been raised decades earlier, not for applause, but for purpose. Woodie King Jr. was not only a man of the stage. He was a builder of it. At a time when African American voices were pushed to the margins, he worked patiently to bring them forward. His career was never about spotlight. It was about space. Born in New York City, King entered theater during a period when opportunity was uneven and often denied. Roles were limited. Stories were filtered. Instead of accepting that reality, he challenged it. He believed that representation was not a trend, but a responsibility. As an actor and director, he understood the power of presence. But as a producer, he understood something deeper, the need for control over storytelling. He helped create stages where Black artists could tell their own stories, in their own voices, without compromise. One of his most lasting contributions was the founding of the new Federal Theater. It became more than a venue. It became a home. A place where young actors, writers, and directors found their first chance to be seen. Performers who passed through those doors often spoke of the same thing. Respect. King treated emerging talent with seriousness. He listened. He guided. And he stayed behind the scenes, letting others step forward. A former actor once said, "Woodie didn't just give me a role. He gave me permission to believe my voice mattered." That belief shaped generations. Through decades of work, King helped launch and support careers that would later define American theater and film. Yet he rarely spoke of his influence. He preferred to talk about the work still left to do. His productions were not loud statements. They were steady truths. Stories about Black life that were complex, human, and honest. Stories that resisted stereotypes and demanded attention through craft, not anger. As the years passed, his role shifted from builder to guardian. He protected the space he had created. He fought for funding. For recognition. For survival. Even when the cultural spotlight moved elsewhere, he stayed. When news of his death spread, tributes came quietly but firmly. Fellow theater leaders called him a foundation. One wrote, "So much of what we see today stands on Woodie King Jr.'s shoulders. He built the room before we ever entered it." Another tribute shared online read, "He never asked for praise. He asked for truth. And he gave so many of us a place to find it." King's family released a brief statement, thanking the community he loved. Woodie believed theater was a mirror, it read. He spent his life making sure everyone could see themselves in it. His absence leaves a stillness in the spaces he once protected. The stages remain. The lights still rise. But those who know their history understand what it took to keep them standing. Woodie King Jr. changed American theater not by demanding entry, but by building the door. He understood that progress often happens quietly, through patience and persistence. Today, the curtains close on his life, but not on his work. His legacy lives in every performer who was once told no, and found a yes waiting on his stage. And as the theater grows silent, one truth remains clear. Woodie King Jr. did not seek applause. He created it, for others. The news settled softly, like the end of a familiar episode. Grady DeMond Wilson had passed away. He was 78 years old. For many viewers, the loss felt personal, as if someone who once lived in their living room had quietly stepped away. Grady DeMond Wilson became known to millions through television. His face was familiar. His timing was gentle. And his laughter carried the weight of real life. He did not play characters that felt distant. He played people who felt known. Born in New York City, Wilson found his way into acting through stage work and small television roles. The path was not easy. Like many black actors of his generation, opportunities were limited and often narrow. But he brought honesty to every role he was given. His most recognized performance came as Lamont Sanford on the sitcom Sanford and Son. As the son of a stubborn father, Wilson brought balance to chaos. He played frustration without bitterness. Humor without cruelty. Love without conditions. Lamont Sanford was not loud. He was steady. A working man trying to build a future while caring for family. Through that role, Wilson reflected the quiet strength of everyday people. Viewers saw themselves in his struggles and his patience. Behind the scenes, Wilson was known as thoughtful and reserved. Co-stars often spoke of his professionalism. One former cast member once said, "Grady understood that comedy comes from truth." He never forced a joke. The show's success made Wilson a household name, but he never allowed fame to define him. After Sanford and Son, he continued working steadily, appearing in films and television projects that reflected his values. He chose roles with care. As television evolved, his presence became less frequent, but his impact remained. Reruns kept his work alive. New generations discovered Lamont Sanford not as a character from the past, but as someone who still felt current. When news of his death spread, tributes filled social media. Fans shared clips and memories. One viewer wrote, "Grady DeMond Wilson made family TV feel real. His laughter felt like home." Another tribute read, "Lamont Sanford taught me patience. He showed strength without anger. That mattered." Wilson's family released a brief statement, thanking fans for decades of support. "Grady believed in honest work and quiet dignity," it said. He was grateful to be remembered. His passing comes at a time when television history is being re-examined. Many now recognize the importance of characters like Lamont Sanford. Not heroes. Not stereotypes. Just real people navigating life. Grady DeMond Wilson helped shape that space. He showed that humor could be gentle. That laughter did not need to be loud to be powerful. That love could be shown through restraint. As the years pass, his work continues to play on screens large and small. His expressions. His timing. His calm presence. They remain unchanged by time. Grady DeMond Wilson will be remembered not for chasing the spotlight, but for sharing it. For bringing warmth into homes during ordinary evenings. For reminding viewers that dignity and humor often walk together. And as the familiar theme music fades into memory, his laughter remains, steady, human, and close to home. The news was confirmed in quiet headlines, the kind often reserved for writers. J. Kennedy had passed away. He was 96 years old. For many, the loss felt gentle but deep, like the closing of a book that had been read slowly over a lifetime. J. Kennedy was a poet, an editor, and a teacher. But more than that, he was a guide. His words did not demand attention. They invited it. For generations of students, his poems were often the first time poetry felt friendly instead of distant. Born in Massachusetts, Kennedy grew up with a love for language and rhythm. He believed poetry should be heard, not feared. That belief shaped everything he wrote and taught. His work was playful, clear, and rooted in everyday experience. As a poet, he avoided heavy language. He trusted simple words to carry meaning. His poems spoke about life, love, and humor with quiet wisdom. They made readers smile, then think, sometimes without realizing it. Kennedy's influence reached far beyond his own writing. As an editor and educator, he helped shape how poetry was taught in American schools. His textbooks and anthologies became classroom standards. Millions of students encountered poetry through his careful selections. Teachers often said his work made poetry approachable. One longtime educator shared, X.J. Kennedy helped students listen to poems instead of being afraid of them. That changed everything. In the classroom, Kennedy was known for patience and warmth. He believed learning should feel human. He encouraged curiosity over perfection. He reminded students that poetry was not about answers, but attention. Outside the classroom, he remained deeply committed to craft. He revised often. He read widely. He believed that humor had a place in serious writing, and that clarity was a form of respect. As news of his passing spread, tributes came from writers, teachers, and former students. One former student wrote online, X.J. Kennedy made poetry feel like a conversation. I still hear his voice when I read a poem. Another tribute read, he didn't just teach poems. He taught us how to listen. Kennedy's family shared a short statement, thanking readers and educators for carrying his work forward. He believed words were meant to be shared, it said. And he was grateful they found homes in so many classrooms. Though literary trends changed over the years, Kennedy's work remained steady. His poems did not chase fashion. They stayed rooted in clarity and care. That consistency earned him lasting respect. His books continue to sit on classroom shelves. His lines are still read aloud. His lessons still guide teachers introducing poetry to new students for the first time. X.J. Kennedy understood that poetry begins with listening. Listening to language. Listening to people. Listening to life as it moves quietly around us. With his passing, a chapter closes in American literary education. But the pages he shaped remain open. His words continue to do their quiet work. X.J. Kennedy will be remembered not for volume, but for presence. For teaching generations how to hear meaning in simple lines. And for reminding the world that poetry, at its best, speaks softly and stays.